play.
Hello guys, welcome to the next ATP Weekly. We actually haven't had one last week because we had all these last ball drops shows during Roland Garros. So hopefully you're excited to talk with us again. Of course, we did appear on some shows throughout the slam. As John said in the chat, we leave in a couple of minutes. We live in a couple of minutes. I don't know, but we are live indeed. And Mario, how are you? And how did you enjoy the most recent edition of Roland Garros? Of course, especially on the men's side, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been, and saying this, I'm talking overall because feelings throughout the tournament were kind of made in myself from both sides, men's, women's tournament.
Of course.
And I think that overall, it's been a nice Grand Slam event. We saw actually some very, very good matches. Also, since the first rounds, there have been some storylines and also some good, I'd say, I don't know how big surprises, but still some names that could have made us tell everyone some kind of stories. Yeah, probably me too. I put this probably ahead of the Australian Open, even if it's a bit difficult for me to make a comparison. Also, since a lot of time has passed between the two Grand Slams. It's one of the most important gaps between two slams in over the season. So a lot of things have happened since. But yeah, I'd say that it's been an event with some great stories from the beginning till the end. Also, actually because of also the new Grand Slam record and so since the I felt that every day there was kind of something in some way special to talk. So I'm pretty satisfied with what has happened in this French Open.
Yeah, for me, I think it's actually also hard to compare, and I guess for you as well, because like the experience of watching both slams was so different to Roland Garros. I was just sitting at home, maybe jumping on these last ball drop shows or something. And of course, the Australian Open, the first week we were watching in Bonn, which was a pretty crazy new experience as well. So definitely hard to compare. But yeah, let's talk about the man himself, Novak Djokovic, getting his 23rd Grand Slam, edging ahead of Rafael Nadal, who is left with 22 and will most likely be left with 22. Although Roland Garros 2024, maybe he's coming. Yeah, just maybe Mario, if you could talk about what sort of achievement that is, and just if Djokovic maybe is. Where did you see him before this event in terms of the GOAT race, and how much this particular title also changes for you in this regard?
I mean, I think that for how much Grand Slam events matter in tennis history, and also talking about the fact that Djokovic holds also a lot of other records, even if not as big as the Grand Slam one, but now having this one also, and also the way he. I mean, I don't think that. Yeah, I mean, for sure the clock is ticking, but not so much you would expect for a man of his age, probably, and the fact that now Wimbledon is coming. But I don't want to talk about the future. Talking about all what has truly happened so far, I think that in this moment he is ahead in the race, because Yeah, because all of what numbers say, in my opinion, and now also having this 23rd Grand Slam, he has now won at least 3 titles in all the Slam events. Yeah, it's also pretty symbolical, probably, that this has happened also in Paris, where he actually won 2 out of the last 3 events, and so he's finding finding a new piece, getting gold with the French Open for different reasons. I mean, I think that as things stand now, he is ahead in the race.
Yeah, I mean, for me, honestly, he was the statistical leader of the 3, even before this, probably for like a year now, or maybe even since 2021. As you guys probably know, I mean, but by now, I've always, like, since the beginning of my tennis watching days, I've been a Federer fan. Doesn't really stop me from saying that Djokovic is the, like, statistical goat. My personal goat, no, but the goats, I guess, could be very different. But like, if we are just looking at the numbers, it's clearly Djokovic, and I'm not really sure how anyone could really disagree with that at this point. So for me personally, this title didn't change much in this regard. But I understand that if, like, anyone was looking for a strong argument, anyone was looking for something that separates him from Nadal as well, maybe even more, we already have it, and it actually looks kind of likely that he might be adding to this soon. Hi Jake, hi Anastasia. um, and yeah, maybe Mario, let's talk about the fact that Djokovic has won Australian Open and Roland Garros in 2016. He's already done that. Wimbledon, of course, he lost to Sam Querrey, which was a big shock. Then the US Open, he lost to Stan Wawrinka in the final, but it wasn't really that Djokovic from the first half of the year either. He was actually, like, pretty average for his standards in that event, I think. Then, of course, in 2021, he got so much closer to the calendar slam because he won the first 3 events of the slam events of the year, then lost to Daniel Medvedev in that US Open final. How do you like his chances to do it this time? Because, well, it's a bit later, of course, in his career. He is. I don't know if he's post his prime. Like, that's actually something that I have been thinking about. I'm not really sure he is. Maybe to some extent he has declined physically, but it hasn't been showing up that much. Maybe other than, like, the heavy breathing and maybe the increased number of smaller injuries, but he still peaks for the best events, and he is more complete than before with the serve, with the maybe more aggression, maybe just the ability to keep points shorter. And yeah, I mean, looking ahead to Wimbledon, to the US Open, how do you like his chances to complete the calendar Grand Slam, which of course would be probably the biggest achievement in tennis history, even counting Rod Laver's in men's tennis history. Yes, Steffi Graf would probably still hold the cake there, but I guess you have to mention men's tennis because people on Twitter have been very like constantly reminding, and I guess that's fair.
No, of course it would be. I think bigger, especially for the fact that now the 4 Grand Slams are played on three different surfaces, and so this probably makes this even a bigger achievement. I would say that even if the player Djokovic, I think that has passed in decline in sense, not passed, his peak, sorry, in sense that before he was, for example, winning 2 Grand Slam titles in a season and then winning 4 Masters titles. And so this kind of, he has not anymore this kind of consistency throughout the season to peak in all the big events. But talking about Grand Slam, he's probably at his peak because his numbers in Grand Slams are incredible, because he, in last 11 Grand Slam played, he won 95% of the matches. He won 6 out of the last 8 Grand Slams he played, which is incredible. Also having reached the 7th final, the one he lost to Medvedev, of course. He won the last 3 he played on 3 different surfaces. He won Wimbledon, then he won the Australian Open, and now the French Open. So in some way, I like his chances. Of course, to really talk about that, thank you, of course, to Irene. To really talk about that, of course, we have to wait till Wimbledon because, yeah, of course, you have first of all to win on grass in Wimbledon, and then you can really talk about the chance to go to New York to achieve that. But still, winning the Australian Open and French Open in the same season was not a task for everyone, even if it's already the third year in a row it happens. But yeah, given the fact that at Wimbledon he is the fourth-time defending champion, and he hasn't lost there since he retired in 2017 against Berrettini. I think I actually can like his chances. That's for sure. Then, if it's not happening, it's not a disaster at all, because what else he has to prove? I don't think that he has anything else to show us. But if there's still a chance, I think that he is still able to try to achieve that. Of course, we know that historically, among the two Grand Slam that he still has to win, the US Open has always been the most. We can also say the most difficult task right now, because he is at 3 even there also. I have to answer you that I think that he has of course all the things he needs to get there. But I mean, history have taught us that that is the ultimate, almost impossible task. So, but maybe if he wins Wimbledon, also he can probably leave the US Open this year with less pressure than he did in 2021, maybe, because having already the Grand Slam record overall and being 2 years older, I don't know. Probably the situation can also be a little different. But yeah, I like his chances, but there's that but in my mind. Still other 50% to complete in order to get there.
Yeah, I think like the shades of Novak's performance in the US Open 2021 final, we actually saw something reminiscent of that in the first set against Ruud here. Where the fact that he was chasing the records, the fact that he was so close to them was certainly tightening him up a little bit. Now, whether the fact that he was able to come back here was more so because he just handled it better, or maybe it was because Ruud wasn't as tough for him as Medvedev was in the US Open, and sort of took his foot off the gas pedal for at least a moment. That's kind of debatable. But I guess we need to. You're very right that the US Open seems like a much tougher task. There are simply more contenders there. Everyone on the tour knows how to play on hard courts, whereas on grass, with the novelty surface that it is right now, it's really complicated. Also, like historically, the US Open has been a pre-open slam for like even the non-big free champions, right? Del Potro winning there, Cilic winning there, Thiem of course winning there, Medvedev winning there. Historically, it just has been a lot more open than the other slams. But speaking of maybe also just before we get to like the final, and also of course we need to talk about the semi with Alcaraz. But one more thing, maybe, who do you think will be his main contender at Wimbledon? Like, are there even any players right now that can really touch him at Wimbledon, or are we maybe looking at something like? Maybe he just has a 1 week match in the 7 that he will need to play, and then he's vulnerable. But generally speaking, like it's more so gonna be his weaker performance, his bad day at the office, than a concrete opponent who can actually take him out. Because there aren't that many contenders on grass right now.
I think that Alcaraz can, in my opinion. Last year we saw some some good experience for him at Wimbledon. Of course, he lost that match to Sinner, but probably if he gets to play him this time, probably the most part of the pressure thing and all these things, he has paid them already in this French Open. So probably he will be more ready to probably be be on top of his abilities for that match. Of course there are not that many contenders, that's for sure, because talking about the hardcourt, we can see we see usually the top 2-3 contenders, and then we can also see some players that in some form, in some kind of days, can represent some big threat, especially at the US Open, given the fact that the Australian has always been pretty much the Novak Slam. It's not that easy right now to talk about that, also because we haven't seen some today and some in the Challenger last week or in qualifiers, but we haven't seen that much of grass court tennis so far, and no grass court tennis at all from the big players, the top 10, 20 in the world. So it's also a bit difficult to already make something like a power ranking. But I think that, for example, a player like Alcaraz has the ability, in my opinion, to do something good on grass. I know that his experience is not on his side, and of course on grass it's difficult because players don't have many matches, especially young players, and until they get to 24, 25, they play really low number of matches on grass. So it's not that easy to gain experience on that surface. But I think that player with that the ability of play fast baseline tennis like Alcaraz, or for example the way we saw something good on grass from Sinner last year, was because from the baseline they can have that ability. So I think that Alcaraz can be a contender if he's in good shape for Wimbledon. Of course, I think that Djokovic is going to enter as the favorite, given the fact that he won the first 2 slams of the year, and the fact that he is a 4-time defending champion. That's without a doubt. But
I mean, it's definitely about like a 50-50 situation with Djokovic against the field or something like that. But Alcaraz, Medvedev, I think these are the main 2 contenders.
Yeah.
I don't care that they haven't done that well at Wimbledon in recent years. You know, Medvedev was always, like, at least by me, projected to become a great grass court player in the future. With the big serve, with also how much more he should be able to do on the offense on the loan, you know, with the flat ball striking. Max is also talking about him right now in the chat. I think he definitely can be a contender for Wimbledon. In the past, I always thought that he was going to win like 2 or 3, to be honest with you. And I actually made this point, or like I think maybe even Vanch made this point. I just did the recording for like the Iga and Carlos show with Vanch, and we kind of got to this idea that the fact that there was no grass at all in 2020 really hurt some of the best, really hurt some of the, not even like the youngest players on the ATP tour right now, but even guys like Medvedev, Tsitsipas, you know, they just have so much less experience compared to guys like Djokovic, Murray, Raonic, you know, who so far, like even in the first week of Wimbledon, of the grass season, so basically Surbiton and today, who so far has looked the best? Murray, Raonic, Jordan Thompson, I don't know, the veterans. Raonic, he moves so well on the grass, and this is crazy to think about this, because like even on hard courts, you would say that Raonic is probably some of the really he is probably one of the worst movers when it comes to the top players on the tour, right? And on grass, where no one really plays well, because there's just no ability to for the top players to gather the experience. Raonic actually looks like one of the best movers on the tour, which is pretty crazy. And I just don't think this will be like the good grass quarters of the of the last few years. Cilic, he's not going to be there, right? I think he's already announced that. Or maybe he's already announced that he's going to be out of Queens or something like that. So anyway, he's not going to be in the picture. Berrettini, yeah, he just got demolished today by Sonego. He went off the court crying. You also have guys like
but we have also to think that it wasn't an easy at all as first match, because Sonego is a really good grass player.
Mario, come on. I mean, it was an absolute disaster.
No, it was a disaster, but I think that it was one of the worst matches he could have got to start his grass campaign. But yeah, of course, his confidence is really low at the moment, and also his movement. Technically, he wasn't. He was nothing today. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's simply not a contender for Wimbledon right now.
No.
Maybe if he has a good grass season, but we all remember what he did at Wimbledon last year against Davidovich Fokina after winning Halle, right? Max is mentioning a lot of players in the chat, like Casper Ruud, who on grass he's not going to be good at there.
The fact about Berrettini, even I'm talking about the Berrettini in good shape, of course, not this Berrettini, and Urkac can they be a threat in Wimbledon? I say yes. But when I'm thinking about them holding the trophy, I just can't see them.
Yeah, but last year, for example, when we were talking about players who could do well at Wimbledon, it was literally Djokovic and then Berrettini, Cilic, Hurkacz.
Yeah,
these were the main contenders, right? And it also maybe you're right, and it also kind of represents that besides Djokovic, there's just no people who you think as main title threats. But then again, Djokovic goes out, and suddenly these guys are the best. Of course, as it turned out, actually Berrettini and Cilic did not play Wimbledon last year because of COVID. So that was just really, and Bautista Agut as well, who was a Wimbledon semi-finalist in 2019. Basically, there are no good grass quarters. I think Alcaraz and Medvedev will be excellent grass quarters at some point. Maybe in Medvedev's case, maybe he even already would have been an excellent grass quarter if he had the grass season in 2020 and also could play Wimbledon last year. So I am definitely of the idea that it's not going to be the grass players that we know that we know could do well there. Like that the guys like Berrettini, Kyrgios, Cilic, Kyrgios maybe, but I just think this year maybe it's going to be focused on the three best players in the world. However, of course, Djokovic
also
is
players who have the ability to open the angles on grass can do really, really well, as we saw, for example, in the women's side with Simona Halep, for example, a player that goes into my mind. And so I think that Daniil Medvedev can I see why you are talking about Medvedev as a potential great grass court player, because these guys that are able to defend well the court and also use the angles really well, especially, for example, with the backhand, having the ability of hit well, even with having less time, can be dangerous.
Yeah, also Max was mentioning Holger Rune, Arthur Fields, probably too early, simply. But yeah, it's just such a weird paradox that we expect all these youngsters to play well on grass, but they don't really have the ability to gain experience, because even practicing isn't like real matches, right? But then at the same time, you cannot really practice on grass either. because after Roland Garros, what you probably play like once or twice before Wimbledon. You can get 1 or 2 weeks of practice, and no one is going to practice on grass in the off season because it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's actually going to be down to these three players that have basically gathered all of the big trophies this year. Alcaraz, Medvedev, and Djokovic, with of course Djokovic being the overwhelming favorite. And maybe some wildcards like Raonic, Murray, some veterans that we know can play on grass, and yeah, they just get on a good run, and it's definitely very possible, especially for Murray, of course, but with Raonic still kind of having to show that this one good match today is going to be amazing. Anyway, we should talk about Casper Ruud, of course, and in general the final. Did like what maybe was his performance in there a little bit disappointing for you, and also what you think of the whole achievement that he's had? So three Grand Slam finals in the past 5 events of this category.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it speaks for him in a way that he probably is a bit different from a lot of players of his generation, because usually we saw this player maybe having great seasons but still struggling, for example, in Grand Slam events somehow. And Ruud has been, of course, consistent in this kind of event, not being able still to cross the line. But we have also to say that he, of course, he got the toughest job in the final. I think that given how the season was going, this is a great result, and I won't be here really to think about him losing the final, because given the fact that he was struggling through the season, and we had also we were thinking about will he be able to defend this final. Probably a lot of people were seeing him not doing this, dropping in ranking, and all these things. I think that he made a good job reaching another final. Speaks that he is a player able to find good results still in these big events. I was thinking about a lot of other player with much more pedigree and much more, I'd say, good judgment from the media that has less than in Grand Slams in terms of final reached. And yeah, so I would in some way I would still focus on the positives. Of course, when you lose a final, there's always that bittersweet feeling, but probably at the beginning, if some people would have to say the top 5 power ranking for a French Open, they wouldn't have put his name into the list. So being the man holding the trophy on Sunday, even if the little one, it can be still a very good achievement in his path, and can maybe turn his season. Now I'm interesting to see what he's going to do on the grass. I know that it's not his surface at all. Let's see if he's able to win at least some matches there.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really changed, I suppose. Ruud still needs like a slip up from, some other contenders probably to win a slam. Here, did it really happen? I don't know. I mean, if you played Ruud or if you played Medvedev in the semis, or he played Rune in the quarters, but obviously Rune still clearly has so many fatigue, stamina, whatever you want to call it, issues in best of 5. And if he actually played Ruud I said Ruud again, Medvedev in the semis, I think he would have had a pretty decent chance. So I'm not saying that this was impossible for him to make the final. However, was it possible for him to win the final? Not really. It was still a better showing than the French Open final, where he just was steamrolled and never really had any sort of confidence, belief that he was going to win it. Here, he actually came out with some really good tactics. Lots of height into the, to keep Djokovic from controlling the point. Clearly, this is a matchup where if Djokovic is aggressive, if he's the one he's the one who's dominating the rallies and just targeting the Ruud backhand, he's gonna be winning these points 80% of the time. So clearly that Ruud has to be either disrupting him or being very aggressive with his forehand himself. He was doing both in the opening set, kept it close, but once he lost the opener, and of course Djokovic did it with another insane tiebreak, Ruud just that belief, the good tactics, they just completely went away, which is disappointing, I suppose, from his perspective. I don't know if he ever really had a winning chance here. I didn't believe it when I saw the first 5 or 6 games. I kind of started thinking that maybe it's possible, but yeah, just completely losing his confidence after dropping the first set. It just wasn't it, and he was pretty close to winning the U.S. Open last year with the 2 set points in the third set against Alcaraz. Alcaraz being very tired back then, and kind of just throwing in some serve and volleys to just make the points shorter. Then of course he won the tiebreak and dominated the fourth. But it's not like he wasn't. It's not like he wasn't close to winning a slam. However, the big question, I suppose, is once Djokovic is gone, once Djokovic and Nadal are gone, can he actually beat Alcaraz, Rune, and Sinner? And in a couple of years, I'm not sure he will be able to do that. But yeah, still making 3 slam finals in just 5 events is just absolutely incredible. And it's the sort of consistency that maybe sometimes can get you that final against a weaker opponent. That maybe will happen for him at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, for example, this can be a factor. For example, if he's going to reach, for example, a 4th Grand Slam final, and then he's going to play, for example, someone who is at his first, and then probably that experience can make a difference. I have to say that if you're talking about a couple of years, I'm not so. It's not so bad, my vision. But yeah, I mean, it's of course something has to happen, but I don't think that his chances are zero. So I kind of take this result as still a very positive one.
Yeah, I maybe don't think that his chances are zero either, but they're not that far from zero for me either. However, maybe he just gets to a final, and there's a weaker opponent there. Then he can actually do the cleanup work. It's possible, but by the time the big three is gone, all the newcomers are actually going to be probably much better for him. And what Max is saying right now in the chat, right?
That my thing is that I don't really believe in that maths equation. Talking that if there are very young promising players, then of course these promising young players are going to be the future stars of tennis. And that's why I give him some chance.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think many other players actually are right now in this sort of spot as Ruud, and one of them is Stefanos Tsitsipas. That sort of moment where the big three is stopping your development at some point.
For example, I think that he's in a worse position. As I watch things, I think that, for example, talking about the backhand, Ruud's backhand has improved more than Tsitsipas' backhand in the recent times. I mean, Alcaraz, for example, played an amazing, fantastic, incredible match against Tsitsipas, but Tsitsipas' performance was something, I don't know. I don't have I don't have words to describe it, to be honest.
I mean, I don't really know if we can treat it like like a mathematical equation where if Ruud's backhand improves more than at Tsitsipas's backhand, then that actually means that he has more chances. Because I still think like Ruud is very close to his cup. He is not going to go a step further. Whereas Tsitsipas can play an amazing match, and then the one-hander doesn't really matter. I do agree with Sean though that I love basically all of every single one-hander. I take a lot of aesthetical pleasure from watching one-handers, and yet Tsitsipas has never really uh, has never really been one of my favorites. Yeah, it's definitely somewhat ugly for a one-hander. But I just think that the upside for both players is just very different. But like it's not really the point of this discussion anyway. Like they are definitely in a very similar spot where they were weaker than the big three, and they couldn't really win slams because of them. And it's kind of possible that in a couple of years, by the time the big three are gone, then they actually won't be able to touch the guys who came after them. So like the next generation, and the game might sort of pass them by. But anyway, I guess we should talk about the semifinal. Carlos Alcaraz, Novak Djokovic. Insane hype on this match. It's very rare that we get the two best players in the world meeting each other just for the second time. Even though for the past year or so, maybe with Medvedev this year, they've been clearly the best in the world. And yet we kind of got a disappointing match out of it. What were your feelings about after the semi didn't really live up to the expectations?
I'm a mean person, so I was expecting something like that. I didn't. I had some weird feeling before the match. Not going to really be able to tell if because one of the other going to not being able to deliver a very very good performance. But usually where there's some great anticipated match, I always have that weird feeling before it. Then and probably we are waiting too much for this that it's going to disappoint now. But talking about seriously, I think of course it was a disappointing ending. Third and fourth set, first two sets. I think that were okay. Of course, in first set, Alcaraz was pretty tense and didn't really play at the highest level. But I was also, for example, amazed by the fact that Djokovic, who had pretty much slow starts in his previous matches, knew that he had to come out playing aggressive since the first point and started the match really well. And this was important. We saw, of course, a very good second set that probably quality wise, not probably, I think that quality wise was the best of the four. And then of course the disappointing ending clearly I think that clearly made us think, of course, that the match was disappointing again. That's for sure, because when a match like that ending with one player ending at 1-1 in the last two sets, but also not being really able to be at his best physically, of course that the match it's disappointing. But I also think that was a good chance to admire how much Djokovic was ready for this one in terms of the focus, in terms of the ability to start really well the match, despite not being able to do this usually, especially in Grand Slams against other opponents. I think that there's not that much to say except for this regarding that match.
Yeah, I mean, definitely super nervous at the beginning. Alcaraz did it play its part into in that injury, probably. That's very possible. I've never really seen him that nervous, I think, and it also clearly shows you that for him as well, it was the biggest match of his career, even if he's already won a slam. And the same probably for Djokovic, but it's one of his biggest matches. But he's already played 100 of them, and he's already he just had so much experience and just knew how to handle it better. I do agree that the second set was fairly okay, and well, from both. I think that quality in general was quite disappointing compared to their Madrid semi, but it wouldn't really have mattered if we actually got them playing for 5 hours and like the drama. It wouldn't really have mattered. Who would have won is a tough question. Is a tough question. I think that Alcaraz had a lot of momentum after the second set, and in the last few games that we saw just before the cramps, he was hitting some of his best forehands the entire match. He was definitely starting to dictate more. He wasn't as tense anymore. He was smiling. He was, having fun like he usually is. So I would maybe say that Alcaraz had the slightly better chance. However, by the time they are like tied at one set all, it's been close. You can't really say that it was more than I don't know 51% chance or something like that. I just think Alcaraz probably had the slight nod of waking up a little bit, not getting rid of that tension. But of course, being nervous probably contributed to his cramp. Novak just demonstrated again that for the most important match, he comes with very different intensity, very different focus. He can play so much better than he did against Kachanov or Davidovich Fokina. He was also able to, at the same time, I think that maybe even slowed him down a little bit in the final, because he clearly had to just give a lot of mental energy to he put a lot of mental energy into this, right? He just had to come out and basically be at his very best level, even though he hasn't been in the past couple of months. I think it really required a lot of effort out of him, but he did it. He deserves a lot of credit for winning that match, even if it ended this poorly. Carlos, please avoid cramps and injuries, says Max. I think this is really something that he can avoid with experience, because if you see a player who's like so much more tense than previously, and then he gets a cramp after just 2 hours of play in a match that wasn't even overly physical, I would say, because Djokovic was really aggressive from the get-go, and even in the second set we didn't see this many long rallies maybe, and somehow after 2 hours, Alcaraz, whom we've seen playing just insane 5 hour thrillers before, he just gets a cramp. I don't think that's an accident. I think that's really because of the tension. So
Yeah.
this should be something that with experience will go away. And also probably he just maybe he himself put too much pressure on him on the fact that like I need to beat Djokovic. Djokovic is like the former, well, maybe not so former, but like the greats that I have to beat, because now I'm supposed to be the great, right? And yet this passing of the torch moment maybe hasn't happened yet. We don't know if we're even going to see an Alcaraz Djokovic match. Hopefully we are, and hopefully they're simply going to be ready. Yeah, and Alcaraz basically said as much, and he was actually very classy also. While pointing out the cramps, of course, but also he managed to mention that Djokovic basically was the reason behind his issues, and yeah, I thought that was pretty nice.
Yeah, I really liked the passage from Djokovic's press conference after the final, in which he saw that about the fact that the young players are I don't know, I don't want to see scared, but feel a lot the occasion to facing him in a Grand Slam, and that feels that it's totally a different affair that facing him in another event. and it's really what he wants the opponents to feel before a match against him in a slam, and that is a little bit what happened, especially talking about the beginning of the match. And also I think that the first games made a huge difference in terms of how then the match progresses, and went in terms of all what happened.
Yeah, and on the other side, we also had Alexander Zverev in the semifinals. He defended the semifinal points. He was, he was of course injured in that French Open semi in 2022 against Nadal, the ankle that got him out of the game for 6 months. So now in the second half of the season, he actually has nothing to defend, which should help him a lot in order to stay at the high ranking spots. Of course, he has so much to gain. If he lost in the opening round, he actually would have been outside the top 70, I think. So yeah, what did we think about this? Because of course it's great for him to reach the semi, but that performance against Ruud in the semifinals.
Yeah, to be fair, I saw Ruud as I don't know why people were talking about the slight favorite, to be honest, but of course, reaching the semifinal, the result itself is pretty important for him, given all the circumstances. The performance was disappointing, of course. He then told that he was not 100% also physically, and that probably can help to explain a little bit all that lopsided affair we had in that semifinal, because there had been only one moment in the beginning in the second set when Zverev had some reaction, and Ruud faced 1-2 difficult service games, but after that, there hasn't really been a match. But I would say I would talk about it in a positive way, because having seen Zverev throughout the year, and first of all, it was kind of, I don't want to say fair, but it was kind of fair, the fact that 1 year later, that horrible injury he had while he was really peaking and fighting for a chance to, I'd say, to win also that Grand Slam 1 year ago, he then returned to the semifinal. He had also some good wins, because of course he took a little bit advantage of that part of the draw, the Sinner and Medvedev's quarter, which opened up a little bit. But he had some good wins, because given the season he had, it was not that clear that he would have beaten best of 5 Dimitrov, but even a player like a solid, good player like Echeverry, he had some good matches in the slam. So I think that it's definitely a step forward in his comeback process, and so I would judge this slam in a very positive way, considering his journey.
Yeah, and defending by all of his points, it's simply probably the most he could do, looking at how he performed in the semifinal. However, is he already back? Probably not, but certainly he has given himself a great platform to just get back up there in the second half of the season. Probably his most important event has already gone, because that's the French Open, but he's made the semis at that, so that's not bad at all. I mean, that's basically the most he's ever had at the French, so it's not like it was bad. It's just
and of course a lot of other players, even with higher chances before it, would have signed today to be able to say I am a French Open semifinalist. So,
absolutely.
I mean,
yeah. Who else do you want to talk about, Mario?
uh,
Or what else? It could be a topic, it could be a player.
yeah, I like the fact that more people knew about Echeverry. I wanted to mention as I have some connection with Argentinian tennis, so I was pretty happy to um, to watch people getting interested in this player, this story. I think that he he has good qualities um, to deserve the ranking position he earned. And I think that it was a nice story in the tournament, but also I really liked the even if Danny was gassed in the third round against Dimitrov, I really liked the Altmaier, the battle against Sinner. It was a pretty huge storyline, that match of the first week. Also, all the emotion he had. It's been a very good slam for South American tennis. It's also both female event with Haddad Maya, but especially the men's event with all these guys. Echeverry, as I see in the comment, Echeverry, Cerundolo, also Jari had a solid result. I don't know. These are things that are coming randomly to my mind right now as I'm thinking about those, about the results in general and the matches. There was also the Monfils. I don't want to say farewell. I hope it's not, but I don't know. At least if it's not coming back for next year's French Open, he had a great night in front of his own crowd in Paris.
I mean, I definitely get the points about South America. And Thiago Seybold as well could have been one of them if he didn't run out of steam against Nishioka. But of course, he still had the biggest win, perhaps the biggest run of his career if we also take out that Santiago 250 title. I was definitely delighted to see Thomas Martin Echeverry in the quarters. I wish he could have gone a round further or 2 rounds further, but everyone, the whole world knowing the power of the hammer forehand and overall the improvements as well that he's made to his serve, to how more solid the backhand is, and how he can find that forehand more easily thanks to that. That was definitely one of the highlights for the event as well for me. I also kind of get why John at the beginning I think said that the Australian Open was more interesting to him because the Roland Garros was more interesting to him than the Australian Open because like the upsets that happened at the Australian Open, they kind of killed a lot of the matches later in the event. Like I don't know, Djokovic Paul, for example, of course, the most glaring example, the Australian Open semi. And here there was actually a fair degree of uncertainty, I guess, in all of the quarterfinal and above matches. So in that sense, it probably turned out that like the amount of upsets was maybe a little more healthy because they happened a bit earlier in the event, and by the time we reached the quarters, it was still like some pretty more well-established names. Of course, me personally, I wouldn't really mind that, but I totally get that opinion. Sinner Altmaier, yeah, that was one of the matches of the event, and in general, the amount of 5-setters over the first 2 rounds, it was off the charts, and it really reminded us how beautiful the best of 5 set format is, and how it's a shame that we don't have it on the women's side as well in any capacity. I don't know, maybe just quarterfinals onwards, maybe the whole event, whatever. But it certainly just helps to create more compelling stories and helps us, build the classic matches that we're going to be talking about for years to come. Because it's just really rare that, I don't know, in a Grand Slam first round or the second round on the women's side, something crazy happens. and that's mostly because of the best of 5 format. You wouldn't get a Sinner Altmaier incredible match like this, or whatever.
Yeah.
Really, you can just put in two random players on the men's side. Vavasori Kecmanovic is probably the greatest example of that, of how incredible that match was, and yet these weren't really players that we were thinking about in terms of going deep in this event. But it doesn't matter. You just give them that best of 5 long format. So many momentum swings, and yeah, it suddenly becomes an absolute classic. Of course, you also mentioned Bonfils Baez, which is just more proof of that for sure. We also had, I guess, Karen Kachanov making the third consecutive slam quarterfinal, which
Yeah.
he's just like Casper Ruud, right?
No, talking about Kachanov, of course, it's pretty huge also because it gave him the opportunity to be back in the top 10 of the ranking once more. And actually, since he hasn't played in Wimbledon, given the ranking and the last 52 weeks, he's been quarterfinalist in all the Grand Slam he was able to play.
Yeah.
I don't even remember to whom to Djokovic, yeah. Sorry. Now, what to say about Kachanov? Probably in some moments he lacks a little bit of variety. Probably his game can become a bit. I don't want to say predictable, but some kind of that. At least against great opponents. But yeah, of course, it's. I'd take consistency. The first thing you need to then being able to use your opportunities, because if you're not there, then you're definitely not going to have a chance. But I mean, with these players who are able to somehow reach another quarterfinal, another semifinal, my advice is, of course, keep going. Then you don't know, an opportunity can come, and so I'd say that. Still, I can't say really bad of a player who reached quarterfinal. I think that in that Djokovic match, someone could have made more, given Djokovic level not being very, very high. Even if in that third set, really the level from Djokovic was high, but I'm talking throughout the whole match. Yeah, I mean, he is that kind of player, but it's a new things, because he in Grand Slams he had not been really that much consistent till these past 8, 9, 10 months. So I mean, this is a pretty huge step forward. In fact, he's now been back in the top 10, and this of course another good kind of good run. French Open was always a pretty good tournament for him. He's a lot of times been in fourth round, even before this year. Still some good signs.
Yeah, he's definitely Casper Ruud for me. Like, he's just one of these guys who reaches a deep round you expect it because it happens every single time, and still you don't believe that he has any chance of winning the title, which is fine. Yeah, as you said, maybe an opportunity pops up, and I think over the course of his last few years, Kachanov has definitely sacrificed some of his explosiveness, some of the higher ceiling that he maybe used to have, in order to just have more higher floor, to have more consistency. Is that actually good for him? I can't really say that. For me, like if I can say this, if the 2023 Kachanov played in 2018, he wouldn't win the Paris Masters. But if the 2018 Kachanov played the 2023 Grand Slams, he wouldn't be making quarters or semis in them. So, it's a bit of a there are pros and cons to it. There are always two sides to every story, and I guess in the long run, it's for a player like him. He's come back to the top 10. It's maybe actually beneficial, even if in an individual match he probably cannot peak like he used to a few years back. If he could actually switch between these two, that would be better. But against Novak, he kind of did just for a set and a half, and then all that forehand aggression that is often missing from his game. And like you said, he kind of becomes really predictable, really physical, really maybe attritional even. And yeah, exactly how John's saying here. He has become more solid to go deeper, but it may mean that he doesn't win any more big titles. Um, if that's what he wants, I think that's perfectly fine. It's really hard to say if that's good for him or not. I think Rublev is also another example of this. Of course, he hasn't been maybe going that deep in slams on such a regular basis as Kachanov, but I think he also used to be a lot more explosive, and right now kind of just has this consistency of winning 2, 3, 4 matches in every event. And in Monte Carlo, we saw that it can also lead to big titles, with still him being probably the better player than Kachanov, of course. And Holger Rune, just very disappointing for me, honestly. Just not the fact that he got to the quarters and lost to Ruud, like that's fine. The result wise, that's fine. However, the fact that he is still struggling with his stamina so much in best of 5 play, and especially after not even having to go out onto the court in his second round, playing Olivieri in the third round. No, I mean, just already in the fourth round against Cerundolo, he just looked dead, barely survived because Frank kind of let him back into the match. And then against Rune, he was just unable to play from the get-go. Like I was expecting Ruud to probably prevail in like 4 or 5 because Rune would be struggling physically, right? But he was just dead from the very first moment of the match.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's for sure. In fact, I remember that probably before the tournament, in that quarter, he was considered as the favorite. But then 2 hours before the match, I saw bookies, and Ruud was the favorite, even for them. And I think that for a lot of people also, Casper went into that as the favorite, even if probably we wouldn't really expect it 1 and 2 in the first 2 sets, probably, but
just on fitness, right? Like that was really what it was about. Like if they played in round 1, Rune would be the favorite for the bookies, and he wasn't because no one believed that he can go with Ruud for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, and also the fact that despite the same first set score, this match was not that close as the last year's one. 2022 quarterfinal was closer than this one. Given also the fact that basically his real tournament started against Cerundolo in the 4th round, it has been a very, very disappointing campaign. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you're right that the 2022 match was closer, and like the whole campaign, Rune was holding up physically very well, right? He was actually winning all of his matches in straights until the 4th round, which maybe helped. But even here, he was, as guys are mentioning in the chat, I mean, Eubanks was very close to pushing him to a 5th in the first round, which already was like the first match of the event. He already wasn't doing okay, so maybe there was something other than the usual fitness issues that he has. I don't know. The result was fine. Quarterfinals, it's okay.
But then you have also
the way he did it.
Yeah, in fact, then you have also to look into the result. And
I mean, I think he would have beaten Monfils pretty easily after Monfils played 5 hours against Baez. So I don't think the walkover changes much, but like that even means that he had to spend even less on the court. Of course, Olivieri wasn't really a match for him, but yeah, Cerundolo was he was already so tired in the 4th or 5th. Anyway, I guess we can also just maybe look ahead to next week. Is there anything in particular that you are really looking forward to see in Stuttgart or Hertogenbosch? Are there any like big storylines there?
Yeah, I think that a big storyline we saw today with Raonic coming back. 683 days since his last match, and he won against Kecmanovic. Yeah, of course, one match is only one match, but still getting him back to the winner's circle, given how much he struggled physically in the last year. That's of course nice news for him, and I think pretty much for everyone. Despite some people can say I like, some people can say I don't like, but it doesn't matter. It's nice news.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I sort of hinted at earlier, like he was moving so well. He was just feeling it after the first few games when he was double faulting a ton. The serve was just in the zone. Then, of course, the big forehand, the easy power on it. It was just pretty incredible to watch. And perhaps even a big contrast compared to someone like Kecmanovic, who, even though he has an ATP Tour title or final on grass, Antalya, was it final
Antalya,
title?
the
Sonego, right?
final
But who won that?
Sonego won.
Sonego. Yeah, so he has an ATP Tour final on grass, and yet,
Antalya,
I mean,
fake grass.
compared to Kecmanovic, he just looked awful. Sorry, compared to Raonic, he just looked like he played on the surface for the very first time. So that was quite something. And as Anastasia is also mentioning in the chat, Kyrgios is playing Ibing Wu tomorrow, which just sounds like an extremely fun matchup, just in terms of viewing enjoyment. I am also so excited to see Hurkacz playing Watanuki on grass. That could be fantastic. Guys like Stefanos Tsitsipas, Daniil Medvedev, they are already in action. It's a big shame that we cannot see Tim van Rijthoven defend his title in Hertogenbosch, but he apparently has an elbow issue now, which took him out again.
Even
He is
because he
going
would
to
have
have
done
to.
it. He would have done it.
He would have done it 100%. And it actually will make him start at like very, very low in the rankings once he comes back. Probably will get a PR of like 100 and something, 120-ish maybe. But he is just really.
I remember the match against Djokovic in Wimbledon was probably one of the funniest match of the event. Of course, we're going to miss him. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, John, I mean, if Tim isn't making it back for Hertogenbosch, he's probably also not making it back for Wimbledon, I would assume. But I mean, it would be cool to see it. Of course, the comeback from him is going to be pretty exciting, especially if he's playing that Hertogenbosch event in next year as well. He is going to start somewhat from the bottom, but still a very talented player. Just this is like the third time in his career that this has happened, I think, where he's out for like more than half a year. Of course, the previous two maybe weren't as there wasn't that much media interest, but he was almost out for the remainder of 2017. For the remainder for the whole 2017 season, and also 2020. He only played like 15 matches. I know everyone didn't play in that much in 2020, but he basically started his campaign after the restart. So there's been a lot of starts and stops in Tim van Rijthoven's career.
That's the proof that John is not listening to us.
Yeah, Kyrgios is playing Ibing Wu tomorrow in Stuttgart. And that's also proof that John is not following the tennis tour enough.
Exactly.
He also wasn't aware that Berrettini lost today, which is one of the biggest stories I guess you probably would hear. That's maybe not about following tennis.
The match was so quick that I was watching another thing, and I missed the match. At some moment, I realized that the match was finished, and so I have seen something before, but not really much, because I mean it wasn't worthy.
And I also wanted to say something, but I absolutely forgot what it was right now. So maybe we're not going to do that. The day after Slam, I think these are actually some of the best days of the year, especially when you have a new surface and yeah, just something completely different.
It depends if you like the surface or not.
I guess. But if you don't like grass, I'm worried for you. Two ATP events, two WTA events, five challengers, of course, billion ITFs. You should all guys watch that, and of course we are going to be back with like another ATP Weekly show, when we're going to talk about more specifically like the events of Hertogenbosch and Stuttgart, talk about the players that are going to emerge victorious there or like have a good run, and also how that can help them working their way towards Wimbledon. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we definitely enjoyed your company here, your comments, and yeah, just as always, very good to talk. It was very nice to talk to you, and see you around.
Yeah, no, same. Thank everyone, and thank to you, Damian, of course. It's always
Thank
a
you,
pleasure.
thank you, Mario, as well.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.